Stick around to the end of the video where we'll be announcing the winners of the Ember giveaway. If you enjoy the content, consider subscribing. Remember, we give away free games each and every month. Thronebreaker: The Witcher Tales is CD Projekt Red's latest surprise drop on the Nintendo Switch and features fantastic storytelling and questing from the same team who wrote the side quests for the mainline game. Originally released on Steam in October of 2018 and consoles in December, you might be surprised to hear it was an expansion pack for their Gwent the Witcher card game. Being a massive strategy fan and not having played this game before, it wasn't a difficult decision to pick this one up. Taking on the role of Maeve, Queen of Lyria in the world of witches, wizards and werewolves, and with some of the most lovely artwork I think I've seen on any game. Let's cut the nonsense, this game is great. Why? Let's find out. As mentioned, you take on the role of Maeve, who is the Queen of Rivia and Lyria, as she returns to find her kingdom, watched over by her son, has fallen into disarray, and the power-centric Nilfgaardians have begun to grow restless in their own kingdom and have looked to yours. There are a number of side stories, as is staple of the mainline Witcher series, and many of these are entirely optional, and every aspect of the narrative delivery just seems to hit the right note.
But Reginald first stayed the execution.
Whether it's doling out justice through one of the many dialogue options you're given,
The Duke of Dogs fed you, so you've strength enough to carry arms.
or simply listening to a tale of a comrade. In the past, I was perhaps overly critical of the vast influx of card-based games. For better or worse, the volume of these employing card-based systems of some description has increased exponentially. With the massive popularity of Hearthstone and CD Projekt's own Gwent, you can see why. In my experience, the mechanics of some of the lesser titles don't offer you a superior experience over the old turn-based systems. However, where Gwent succeeds is how it built an incredibly simple yet robust set of mechanics, and it's these same mechanics that Thronebreaker thrives on, with a few refinements for quality of life. When you begin your game, you're greeted with several difficulty options, from a story-centric mode which enables the skipping of fights if you really get stuck, to one intended for the hardcore Gwent pros. Whichever option you choose, the game is divided into two distinct areas. I was initially really surprised that it featured a fixed isometric camera overworld map, which had a fantastic hand-painted style. The world is not just a totally lifeless facade to simply facilitate card-based combat either. In fact, there are several collectibles and secrets which can be found as you run around the map, many of which are essential, such as the wood, troops and money that you'll find throughout. These three resources make up the backbone of your experience, and allow you to unblock new routes as well as successfully handle the multitude of side requests that the populace may ask of you. There's a balancing act taking place, as many of these will either reward you with some coin or treasure maps, more on that later, but more often than not, they're linked to the morale system. Now, morale is shown by the symbol in the top left of the screen. A high morale will increase the power of your deck, while conversely, low morale will negatively affect it. Treasure maps are scattered across the surprisingly large map and are usually depicted via a hand-drawn image with a good old X marks the spot. Once you've found the location, these are easily dug up to bolster your coffers. As you venture about the familiar locales, you'll encounter several main and side quest story segments, which are expertly narrated, and is where you'll experience the vast majority of your card-based battles.
The Lyrians entered the graveyard. Crickets chirped in its tall, windswept grass.
The familiar town notice boards expand the details of your map and will allow you to uncover those hidden treasure items and secret areas. When you want to manage the finer details of your army, this can be done by setting up camp. From here, you'll be chatting with the generals for story exposition, purchasing and altering your card deck, and upgrading your buildings using the resources you've gathered throughout combat and exploration. Now, one of my biggest bugbears with most deck building games is their reliance, often unintentionally, on the RNG or random number generation factor. For example, the cards being drawn at random can lead to simply getting a series of poor hands and then failing a combat encounter. Thankfully, the balancing feels just about right with Thronebreaker, and at its default it plays out like a streamlined version of Gwent. Each game consists of 3 rounds. Players draw 3 cards per round, and each has their own attack and defense ratings, and most cards will also have a special ability. Now, in the corner you can see your leader Maeve, who in turn has her own special skills that are tied to the weapon card you've given her. More of these are unlocked as you progress and can be changed and managed from within your camp. The core aim of the standard Gwent combat is to have a stronger army than your opposition. It's indicated here, and it makes the combat sound far easier than it is. With the addition of the special abilities and skills, every move must be carefully thought out, and in particular, you'll be thinking of what the opposition is going to do next rather than what you need to do now. Throughout the game, you'll experience battles known as puzzles. Now, these mitigate that randomness that I spoke of before. They're a single round of combat and have a very specific play order that you must figure out. I really enjoyed them. Just knowing that my own skills and abilities are what was holding me back felt refreshing. There were times when they took a good deal of time to overcome, but the optional nature of many of these fights reduced the potential frustration. The addition of optional extra objectives within the combat goals adds some replayability to the game as well, which was a smart move. I thought the way story was interwoven into everything you do in the game made it incredibly compelling.
I shall teach you to respect the crown, you dogs!
The controls are, for the most part, really straightforward, and every aspect is signposted to the player. Nothing's overly intrusive, and despite the many on-screen guides, it feels clear and uncluttered. Throw in the several letters and card fragments you discover across the world, and the smart way these are managed in your satchel, it's just good design. One area that often goes overlooked, mainly by myself, but it's noteworthy here, is that the first hour of this game acts as a tutorial of all the systems that are in place, but not in the shoehorned, awkward way it's so often handled. Here it's quite seamless, and any new ideas that crop up throughout the experience are not only visually shown in text form, there's often a video representation. It might sound like a small thing, but so often developers sideline the task of teaching the player how to play. Overall then, the gameplay is excellent and far beyond what I was expecting. I love the decisions you had to make and the way the fallout of these played out over your playthrough, which is a hallmark of the Witcher mainline series, and in particular the designers, Matthias and Carolina, who worked on the Witcher 3 questing. Now, despite the new characters, it still feels a part of the same universe that you may have traversed with Geralt, and that's to its credit, both in terms of the storytelling, but also the art direction and gameplay. There are flaws, certainly. The running is a touch slower than I would have liked, and your character feels a little floaty to control, but they're small gripes and have a minute impact on the experience as a whole. For me, the gameplay is excellent. It scores 19 out of 20, while the controls score 17 out of 20. I enjoyed the art direction CD Projekt Red went for throughout the game. The small details such as farmers working in fields, the villages you visit, and the destruction that engulfs much of the world as the story progresses are all wonderfully depicted. Characters are given a good deal of life during dialogue, with facial movements and shifting poses, a welcome change in comparison to the fixed style illustrations so often used. When in combat, the player and opponent are seen cheering on the action, and despite its more static nature, there are effects and animations aplenty which add to the sense of movement and action. The three main artists, Marcin, Mikolai and Peter, did an excellent job of turning the original concept artwork into a flawless representation of an isometric Rivia. Performance in both docked and handheld is equally good, with acceptable loading times. There are the very occasional stutters, but nothing of note, and a few visual anomalies on the odd card. For the most part, it's top notch from start to finish, and you've also got the option of turning off those card animations. The game seems to run at native resolution in both modes, with a capped out 30 frames per second. Audio is equally good, with the female lead voiced by Lucy Black, and the narration from the excellent Timothy Watson, bringing their roles to life in a way the Witcher series seems to repeatedly succeed where some others perhaps fail.
You needn't get excited, Caldwell. Where is Lord Clayton?
Soon, Queen and retinue arrived at Hawksburn. The men stationed there they found standing...
I'm currently reviewing another title where the writing just isn't up to snuff, and the difference that makes is huge. The voice acting and excellent writing here are standout and set the bar for lesser titles. When a game captures me with the optional stories, such as sitting in the officer's mess, just hearing the tales of my comrades, that's when I know they've nailed the art and sound design. Visuals are beautiful, stylized and perfect for the Switch, and I have to give credit to the developer for showing the individual artists' names on specific pieces of artwork. Those familiar with the music of the Witcher series will feel like you've just donned a set of comfortable old slippers. Visual score 17 out of 20. Perhaps an option to rotate the camera may have been of benefit, and there were a few incredibly minor visual glitches, but I'm clutching at straws. Audio is exceptionally good. For me, it gets 20 out of 20. With a runtime of around about 30 hours for the main campaign and some decent replayability on different difficulty modes, it is a shame they didn't include a multiplayer option. I would have loved to have battled it out online. Still, costing £16.99, €19.99 or $19.99, the price seems right on the money. Absolutely the right price for an excellent game that is at home on the Nintendo Switch. It is a shame they've not released a physical version and currently have no plans to do so. This would have fit nicely on your shelf. Still, I'd say this was well worth the price. Value scores 18 out of 20. To absolutely no one's surprise at all, I've absolutely loved playing Thronebreaker: A Witcher's Tale on Nintendo Switch. The overused cliche of it being perfect for this platform, well, it really is. It's a lovely commute game, or just lazing out in front of the TV with Joy-Cons at your sides and a tankard of ale. No, I'm getting carried away. It scores a switch-up score of 91%. It's a must-own for strategy fans and Witcher fans alike. Congratulations to the winners of our Ember giveaway. Your names are on the screen now. A big thanks to our patrons who support us each month, and to all of you who enjoy the channel. For all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya! Toss a coin to your Witcher.